Madam President.
The senator from South Carolina.
Are we in a quorum call?
Yes.
I ask the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I was just listening to the news in my office and heard the report that the United States had gone over $15 trillion in debt. Of course, that's just our short-term debt. It doesn't really include our unfunded liabilities, which some estimate to be $100 trillion. But nevertheless, $15 trillion is the size of our total economy, a condition that would mean certain bankruptcy for almost any business. All of us in these chambers have stood in awe, I guess, looking across the Atlantic at Greece and Italy and some of our European trading partners, and it just seems amazing to us that despite their terrible fiscal condition, the politicians in Greece cannot even cut spending. They talk about cutting it, but the government employees are out in the street demonstrating, and you just have to think, can't they see what's happening? Why do they want to keep spending? It's like there's an addiction. But here we are in the land of the free, the city on the hill for the world as far as the country that sets the example for free markets and free enterprise and have fought wars to keep the rest of the world free. Here we are in a situation where we have to borrow well over $100 billion every month just to keep the lights on in this place, just to keep our country going. And all year long we've been having these public showdowns about how we need to cut spending. We've threatened government shutdowns over the continuing resolutions and over increasing the debt limit. And you would think by this point we would be cutting spending to some degree. We've established this super committee supposedly to deal with our huge deficits. Yet we're passing spending bills this week, today, that increased spending versus last year. And last year we spent 5% more than the year before. In reality, in some ways, our country is worse off than Europe because we have federal debt, we have state debt, we have municipal debt, we have counties declaring bankruptcy, we have states approaching bankruptcy, yet we continue to spend more now than we did last year. After all of the fuss and fighting and brinksmanship, super committees, we can't seem to cut anything here. In fact, we're increasing spending. And the goal of the super committee is not to cut spending. It's not to cut our debt at all. The goal of the super committee is to reduce the amount we're going to borrow over 10 years. Maybe reduce it from $10 trillion to $8 or $9 trillion. We're not even on the same page with the reality right now. And we've increased spending so dramatically over the last few years. I mean, we've added $4 trillion to our debt since President Obama came into office and passed $1 trillion stimulus. We've passed Obamacare adding $1 trillion of spending. And we're still spending. And instead of talking about cutting, the debate now seems to be is how can we take more from the American people in taxes to feed our addiction? And we focused our guns on those very people who create our jobs and create most of the opportunity in our country, people who are already paying the largest portion of national taxes of any country in the world, because we've shifted so much of the tax burden onto the top income earners, and we're blaming them for the wealth gap, when in fact the real blame for the wealth gap comes from the government taking so much out of the private sector, regulating with such a heavy hand, having the highest corporate tax rate or the second highest corporate tax rate in the world. The problem with the middle class is not those who are making too much money. It's a federal government that doesn't understand that the more we spend and borrow, the fewer jobs there are going to be in our country today. Yet that's the big argument here. Instead of cutting spending, We're actually talking about taking more from hard-working American taxpayers and bringing it in here and giving it to the people who've created that $15 trillion in debt. How could anyone make sense of that? It's really pretty amazing, after all the promises we've made to the American people, that we're watching our debt go up like this, passing $15 trillion, and we still can't talk about any substantive cut. Let me give you one example of something that makes so much sense. Over the last 2 decades, we've seen welfare spending increase nearly 300%. There's 77 means-tested welfare programs. And over the last couple of decades, since welfare reform, the spending has increased nearly 300%. Now, that's more than the combined increase of Social Security and Medicare. It's more than the increases in education or in defense. And are we helping people? Not at all. We've got more people in poverty than we ever have. And we're discouraging self-sufficiency while encouraging dependency on government. In the last 4 years alone, we've nearly doubled what we're paying for food stamps, from $40 billion to $80 billion in this year's budget. If all we did was return welfare spending to 2007 levels, we could save almost $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. That's twice the goal of the super committee of cuts. But are we even thinking about it? Is it even on the table? Absolutely not. Because the one thing I've seen with this place is we're very good at getting bipartisan agreement on increasing spending in areas of need. But you seldom see bipartisan agreement on any cuts. Would we look at responsible caps on welfare spending? Not even a chance. It's not even on the table with the super committee discussions. With Medicaid alone, if we return spending to 2007 levels, we could save more than the goal of the super committee of $1.2 trillion. But we're not willing to discuss cuts. I think it's a sad day for America that we're plowing past $15 trillion, pretending to be responsible to the American people, while last week and this week and on and through the rest of the year, we're going to be passing spending bills that spend more than we spent last year. And we're supposedly in a recession. Americans are tightening their belts. Many are out of work. And what we're talking about here is let's continue to spend and take more from hardworking, tax-paying Americans so we can keep our spending addiction going here in Washington. It is utterly irresponsible what we're doing. And the President, all he can do is point at those who he calls millionaires, who are generally the people who are creating the jobs, running the small businesses, and having the most to do with creating the investment that makes our economy grow, and trying to blame them for the problems that we create here in Washington. It's time we keep our promises to the American people. I know it's hard for some in these chambers to cut spending because dependency on government often means a dependable vote for many politicians. But it's time we look at the future and the debt that we're loading onto ourselves, our children, and our grandchildren. This country will not survive the type of policies that we're producing here in Washington today. This super committee should look at real cuts in spending. If our Democrat colleagues are not willing to go along with responsible spending caps on programs like welfare, then we need to walk away from the table and take our case to the American people and tell them what is really the truth. Is that 2012, the elections in 2012, may be our last chance to turn this thing around. We cannot keep spending at this level and keep taking more and more from the private sector, from the job producers in our country, bringing it here to Washington and spending it on wasteful programs fraught with fraud and duplication, and not even ever consider cutting any of them. Last week, Dr. Coburn had a couple of amendments to an appropriation bill that had some very small cuts that had been deemed wasteful, ineffective programs. On one of his amendments, he only got 13 votes. So this is clearly a bipartisan problem. We need to cut spending. Washington has a spending problem. It does not have a low tax problem. And it's time we focus our attention on reducing the size and scope of the federal government and have it live within the constitutional boundaries. Eliminate programs that are wasteful, return others to the state, trim our budget to the point where we can pay for what we're spending so that we will not keep adding trillions and trillions of debt onto our country and our citizens and our next generation. Thank you, Madam President. I yield back. I note the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. Madam President.
The senator from Hawaii.
Madam President, I ask the unanimous consent that the quorum call be rescinded.
Without objection.
And Madam President, I ask unanimous consent that I may speak in those in morning business for 5 minutes.
Without objection.
Madam President, as chairman of the Committee on Indian Affairs, I am sponsoring a resolution co-sponsored by Majority Leader Reid, Vice Chairman Barrasso, and several members of the committee, designating November as Native American Heritage Month and November 25th of this year as Native American Heritage Day. This resolution recognizes the contributions of Native Americans. We see the influence of the Iroquois Confederacy on the founding fathers of our country as they drafted the Constitution. And today, Native American contributions in modern agriculture, medicine, music, language, and art are undeniable. In that tradition of service, Native Americans have had the highest representation per capita in our armed forces in every war since World War II. As a veteran of World War II and as a native Hawaiian, I celebrate the heroic work of the code talkers and the countless American military victories that were achieved in both world wars with unbreakable military code founded on indigenous languages and cultures. As we reflect on Native American Heritage Month, it is important to remember our history and the promises we made. It is time to account for those promises, kept and unkept. As a nation, we're built on the highest principles. Our founding fathers embraced equality, liberty, and justice, and incorporated them in the very fabric of our Constitution. They contemplated the unique role of indigenous peoples in our country and acknowledged their sovereignty in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. The Founding Fathers set a high standard. As Americans and as members of this body, it is our duty to continue to legislate policies in keeping with our founding principles. For this reason, I applaud President Obama's recent commitment of U.S. support for the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, an international standard that I have been championing for more than a decade. In the Committee on Indian Affairs, I held an oversight hearing on domestic policy implications of the Declaration. We found that while the United States is a world leader in recognizing and protecting the rights of indigenous peoples, there is more work to do. The rights of self-determination and self-governance contained in the Declaration are American ideas, ones that we have embraced as official federal policy for more than 45 years. I am committed to working with my colleagues to enact legislation that gives real meaning to the high principles expressed in the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. In the United States, November, Native American Heritage Month, is a time when we reflect and give thanks. And I encourage my fellow Americans to learn more about the Native peoples of this land and celebrate Native American Heritage Day on the day after Thanksgiving. As we honor the contributions of Native Americans, let us recommit ourselves to the high principles of self-determination and self-governance and strive for what is pono, just and right for all, including our first Americans. Madam President, I yield back my time and suggest the absence of a quorum.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Akaka. President? Mr. Chairman, I consent the call to be terminated.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we started out this week hoping that we could complete minibus. What that means is to do what we did a couple of weeks ago and complete 3 appropriation bills at the same time. And we had 3 good subjects of that. We had the underlying bill, which was energy and water. We moved from that. We added to that financial services and foreign operations. We were unable to get a consent agreement that we could treat the package of bills the same way we treat other appropriation bills. That is, you can't legislate on an appropriation bill, and it has to be a germane any amendment that's offered. So we didn't get that agreement, which I was disappointed. It's really too bad, but that's the way it is. I accept that. The best news out of this is we have, with the underlying bill, 2 of the finest senators that we have in the Senate, or have ever had, actually, Senators Feinstein and Senator Alexander. They are knowledgeable, they're easy to work with, and they understand that legislation is the art of compromise, to work through issues. And they've done a wonderful job in the last 24 hours working down the amendments. We have a number of amendments on the Republican side, a finite list of amendments. We should have the Democratic side of those very quickly. I think we need to work it down a little more. But I appreciate very much the good work of Senator Alexander and Senator Feinstein. Normal process would be to pull the bill and come back some other time. We're not going to do that. We're going to have the bill here on the calendar of the Senate so that we can move to it at a minute's notice, really. And we'll keep this around. We hope to be able to move to that soon. We're going to have always around here, there's downtime, and anytime we do that, we should be able to finish this bill in a day or day and a half, something like that, once we get these amendments worked out. This will give us the opportunity to move to the defense authorization bill. I indicated Senators Levin, Senator McCain. Well more than a month ago, I would move to this bill. Not everything is worked out in it, but that's nothing that's unusual. This is a huge bill. Senators Levin, McCain, Lindsey Graham, and others have worked very hard to try to work out one of the problem areas we've had, and significant progress has been made there. It really doesn't matter. I've spoken to one Democratic senator, and he still isn't real happy about that information that's in that bill, but I told him that he would offer an amendment very quickly and he could try to assert his position. I think that's how we should do things around here. So, Mr. President, I would ask consent that following morning business tomorrow, Thursday, November 17th, the Senate proceed to the consideration of calendar number 230, S. 1867, which is the Defense Authorization Bill.
Is there objection? Without objection.
It would seem appropriate, Mr. President, that we now move to a period of morning business. Members allowed to speak for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
Mr. President.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President.
If I could ask my friend to withhold for just a minute.
Yes, I will yield.
The Majority Leader.
Mr. President, it's important to announce to the Senate, because of this, there will be no roll call votes tonight.
Senator from Louisiana.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to ask unanimous consent that Miles Quixote from Senator Grassley's office have floor privileges for the remainder of the day.
Without objection.
I'd also like to ask unanimous consent that the Help Committee be discharged from further consideration of S-Res 302 and the Senate proceed to its consideration.
Clerk will report.
S-Res 302, expressing support for the goals of National Adoption Day and National Adoption Month and so forth.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, and any related statements be printed in the record as if read.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to consideration of S-Res 324 submitted earlier today.
The clerk will report.
S-Res 324, commemorating the 60th anniversary of the United States-Australia Alliance.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent the resolution be agreed to, the preamble be agreed to, the motion to reconsider be laid upon the table with no intervening action or debate, and any statement related to the resolution be placed in the record at the appropriate place as if read.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. President. The first resolution that was just approved by unanimous consent is a very important resolution that Senator Grassley and I are proud to support, along with Senator Inhofe and others, and that is a resolution commending, recognizing that this Saturday is National Adoption Day. And I'm happy to report, Mr. President, that on this Saturday there will be over 3,500 children that will be adopted into permanent families. And this day was started about 10 years ago by some very enterprising organizations, and the Senate and I believe the House of Representatives has been helping to promote the concept of National Adoption Day for many years now, maybe as long as 10. We sure have been working to help highlight this special day, but it was started by nonprofit organizations to highlight the fact that we have in the United States orphans. People don't believe this, but there are over 100,000 children in our foster care system between the ages of 0 and 21 who are in our foster care system, whose parental rights have been terminated for good reason, maybe terrible or gross abuse or neglect, parents just unable or unwilling to raise their biological children, and these children need a forever family. They need a relative to step up. They need a cousin to step up. They need an aunt to step up. They need a grandmother to step up. Or they need someone in the community to step up and say, you can be a part of our family, because people, Mr. President, don't stop needing families when they're 21 years old. Now, they age out of the foster care system, unfortunately, at 21, despite the good work that we've done here to extend that time from 18 to 21. Unfortunately, every year, 25,000 children age out of our foster care system, as the senator from Iowa, who's been a phenomenal leader on foster care reform, knows, without ever having been adopted. And when you're 25 and you're trying to, or 24 or 23 and trying to apply for your first job, it would be nice to have a mother or a father or a grandmother or father to call and ask, how do I dress? What should I say? Does my resume look okay? These children don't have that. When you're engaged, it would be nice to be able to call a parent and say, can you help with the expenses of the wedding or be there for me? These children don't have that. And so that's what National Day, Adoption Day is about, to highlight the fact that there are children in our foster care system, beautiful children, strong children, intelligent children, that need a forever family, and we're doing our best to promote adoption for them. Not only in our system, Mr. President, in the United States, but sadly there are about 163 million children around the world living outside of family care, and we think that number is conservative because we have reason to believe that even UNICEF, who does a lot of this counting, is not really counting children that are in orphanages. So this number, unfortunately, is probably larger than this. And it sounds overwhelming, and it can be at times to think about our goal to try to find a home for every one of these children. But just to put in perspective the Louisiana or the U.S. numbers, it's 107,000 children. But the good news is that we have 300,000 churches in America alone, not counting synagogues or mosques, just 300,000 churches. So, Mr. President, you can easily do that math. If just one family out of every 3 churches adopted one of these children in foster care, we wouldn't have any more orphans in America. And so that's why we're promoting today and this week, which is National Adoption Month, this is National Adoption Day, the fact that you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to be wealthy, you just have to have a big heart and step up and be willing to add this blessing to your family. And so many families have been blessed by adoption. As many people know, our family has been blessed by adoption. So this day, to commemorate National Adoption Day, in fact, I said 3,500. Let me correct the record. It's 4,500 children that will be adopted on this day, and 5 will be adopted in New Orleans, Louisiana. And I want to thank Judge Ernestine Gray and all the judges for their good work to make that possible. So we want to finalize these adoptions in all 50 states this Saturday, celebrate and honor families who adopt, encourage others to adopt children from foster care, build stronger collaborations among local adoption agencies, and again raise awareness about the 107,000 children waiting. Many of these children, despite our laws that mandate an 18-month wait period maximum, sometimes they wait more than 3 years. So let me just, in conclusion, say we need to do more. We can do more. I want to highlight for the record 2 wonderful organizations that, in my mind, have been going above and beyond the call of duty. One is Dave Thomas Foundation, Wendy's Wonderful Kids. They are a great example of just one organization that's doing great work to find homes for children who are considered unadoptable or hard to place simply because they're 7 or 8 or 10 or 12 and not 1 or 2. They're too old to be adopted. I never thought I'd hear the words too old when you're 7 or when you're 8 or 12, but that's what people think. And so they've worked hard, Wendy's Wonderful Kids, and have come up with a new approach, a better approach. They have had extraordinary success in piloting a new child-focused recruitment plan and finding 2,500 children permanent homes since 2004. Rita Sornin, Executive Director of Dave Thomas, is the leader. Wendy's Wonderful Kids is a great example. And let me just put into the record another organization which has a gallery right here in the National Heart Gallery, which was exhibiting right here at the Capitol in the Russell Senate Rotunda. the National Heart Gallery, which is another very organic, nonprofit, community-based movement to take beautiful portraits of these children to show their personality and their life. So when people are looking at their portraits thinking, is this something that maybe we could do, they would be pulled in by the beauty of these and true reflection of the child's personality. And so the National Heart Gallery is another wonderful organization, and I want to just recognize those two. There are many others. I want to say in conclusion, I thank the senator from Iowa. He and I chair the Foster Care Caucus together. It's been a pleasure working with him. We look forward to another great year ahead. We've had some success, actually a great deal of success in promoting adoption out of foster care and reforming the foster care system. But Senator Grassley, it's a pleasure to work with you, and I now yield the floor to my colleague, and we'll submit the rest to the record. Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
The distinguished senator from Iowa.
I appreciate the kind words of the senator from Louisiana.